So I took the Dyson PureCool fan/air purifiers, both the TP04 and the DP04, and compared them to the Honeywell HPA200 True HEPA air purifier. We put them all through a lot of different types of tests, and this video will be the results of those tests as well as a description of their features and differences. Links in the description for current prices, and let's get started. First, I should mention that in one sense this is a totally unfair competition because the Honeywell is basically just an air purifier with some pretty basic features. As we'll see, it does its job really well, but the Dysons are jam-packed with hardware and features that make them the clear choice here, but the challenge of this video will be to see if you think the Dyson PureCools are worth the extra $200+ for your situation. It's going to take me a minute to go through all of these features, so if you want to skip right to the test portion, you can skip ahead to the timestamp on the screen. So looking at the features, it's important to know that the Dyson TP04 and DP04 are very similar other than the shape of the fan and a few other things which we'll get into later. But they both come with 2 HEPA filters as well as what seems to be 2 very high quality activated carbon fiber filters with real activated charcoal inside, which can absorb harmful pollutants and gases as well as absorb odors like smoke and pet odors. The Honeywell also has 2 HEPA filters as well as an activated carbon filter, but its carbon filter does seem to be a bit lower quality than the Dyson's, and there's no actual charcoal I can see. It's probably just a mesh that's been treated with charcoal or something like that, though I'm not sure. Both the Dysons have the same display and sensor suite. They can be controlled by the single button on the unit or by remote control, or through the app, which has all the features of the remote control and much more. There's a built-in particle counter which gives you real-time reports of the air quality, including 2 sizes of particles. You can check for volatile gases or nitrogen dioxide. You can also monitor the current temperature and current humidity. I really like that all this data can be tracked on the app, so you can monitor if there are events that happen in your home on a daily basis that trigger unsafe levels. The Dyson app also lets you schedule your air cleanings on certain days and times and on certain settings during those occasions. It has various timers and modes and other things I probably forgot. The Dysons also have 10 power settings, giving it a good range of airflow options and sound levels, which I'll talk more about later. The Honeywell pretty much has a low, medium, and high power, as well as a turbo setting, which is a little more powerful and a lot louder. It has 3 timer buttons, a light dimmer switch, and some alert lights to change the filters. So yeah, pretty basic. One of the more obvious differences between the Dysons and the Honeywell is that the Dysons are also fans. Or should I say that the Dysons can be fans if you want them to, since you can hit a button on the Dysons to basically shut off the fan while having the air purifier work as normal. The fans can be oscillated in several ways, which means they can go back and forth, or you can turn off the oscillation and just point it in different stationary directions with the app. One of the first differences I'll mention between the Dyson TP04 and DP04 is that the smaller round one, the DP04, can also be tilted up or down where the TP04 cannot. The Honeywell also has a clean air exhaust, but it's not really meant to be used as a fan, as it just blows air up toward the ceiling. I did test the fan strength of both the TP04 and DP04 to see if the shape affected the amount of air despite them having the same motor, and in fact I did find that the round fan, the DP04, was just a little more powerful on high power measured directly at the base, but it was pretty close in terms of real-world measurements where I found them both to effectively provide the same amount of air at a given distance. So let's start the testing portion with some simple airflow test measured with an anemometer. Here I'm testing the intake, that is how much air they are sucking in and processing in cubic feet per minute. I will also include the noise level in decibels on low, medium, and high power for comparison's sake. So we see that the Dysons have the same airflow as the Honeywell on high power and at the same basic noise level too. The Dysons have more options for quieter operation, but the Honeywell has a turbo mode which gives you more airflow but at a cost of 8 extra decibels. And since decibels are exponential, 8 extra is a significant amount here. So in the upcoming test I mostly compared the high power of the Dysons to the high power of the Honeywell since they were both comparable power at the same basic realistically usable noise level. So the first test is just a speed test, where I fill up the test box with 5 micron fog particles by holding down the button for 10 seconds and timing how long it takes for the visible fog to be cleared. And the results pretty much mirrored the airflow data. For example, on the Dyson's super low-powered number 1 setting, it took about 101 seconds to clear, but the Dysons were pretty much tied with the Honeywell on the high-powered setting. But one notable thing was I was getting faster times on the Dysons because I had the fans turned off when testing, and since the Honeywell doesn't have an option to stop blowing air around, it was slowing the process down on the Honeywell. When I turned the fan on the Dysons to make it similar conditions, I found that they were essentially tied in the speed test. One of my favorite tests was a real-world test where I take them upstairs, which is essentially a wide-open space with a living room with high ceilings, which opens up on a kitchen and a studio as well as a bedroom. Basically about 8,000 cubic feet, way larger than any of these air purifiers are meant to clean. So if you've ever wondered if you can use a smaller air purifier for a much larger space, this test is for you. I basically measure the air quality beforehand with a particle meter in 3 different rooms in the house. Then I start the air purifier on high power and measure the changes 4 times over the course of an hour and 1 time the next morning. Since the baselines were different, I measured the results in the form of a percentage. I found that after an hour, they both had brought the particles in the whole house down about 80% and over 90% by the next morning, with the Honeywell doing just a couple percentage points better than the Dysons. So yeah, I think these guys can be used for much larger spaces than they're advertised for. I also did a solid particle test with a special kind of dust that contains many different sized particles. I took the filters out of a vacuum to spread these particles around a small room. Here again, I measured 4 times an hour and used a percentage to measure the results. I did find similar results. At the end of an hour, the room was 98% cleaned by the Dysons and 99% cleaned by the Honeywell. I should mention at this point that many air purifier purists don't like these kinds of tests, because at the end of the day they're only testing how fast the unit processes air, and they aren't really speaking to the quality of the air, since things like really good charcoal filters are hard to test unless you want to break out some dangerous gases. I suppose I could test something to do with the removal of odors that good charcoal filters are good at, but I couldn't think of a way to quantify odor reduction for video. The other issue is that the higher the quality of the filter, the slower the air uptake will be, so keep all that in mind. So I would say that the Honeywell HPA200 and its big brother, the HPA300, are excellent air purifiers that will process your air and clear it of both small and large particles at least as good as the more expensive Dysons. I'm not sure its activated charcoal filter is very good for gases or odors, but it certainly seems to be an excellent value. On the other hand, I see the Dyson PureCools as higher quality filtration system, both because of the better charcoal filters and because of the intensely cool air monitoring systems and all the technology associated with that, which provides a ton of value for me. Also, it's a fan, so it's much more functional than a traditional air purifier. That being said, the significantly higher cost of the Dysons is something to consider, but in any case, all 3 of these air purifiers do their jobs and do them well. Links in the description for current prices on all these units, and if you liked this video, please consider a like, or even better, a subscription to Vacuum Wars, where we do tests like this all the time, usually with vacuums and robot vacuums, but probably with more air purifiers in the future. Thanks for watching.